The first army, commanded by Andarzaghar, arrived, it was sent towards the city of Welajah, the first strategic target on the road between Uballa and Al-Hira. It was expected that the Arabs would attack in this direction, so the remnants of the Sassanid forces which fought under Karins joined Andarzaghar, bringing his numbers to somewhere between 25 and 30,000 troops. This army took positions outside of Welajah sometime in May. The second army was led by one of the top commanders in the Sassanid army, Bahman, and it was supposed to reinforce Andarzaghar if the Muslims indeed decided to move to Al-Hira. For now, this force of 20,000 was to be stationed along the Euphrates, halfway between Uballa and Welajah. Meanwhile, Khalid's scouts, being from the local tribes, were able to gather information with impunity, so he seemingly knew about every enemy move. He decided that his smaller force needed to defeat one of the armies opposing him, and he could not allow them to reinforce each other. So he left a minor garrison around Uballa and marched west, hoping to defeat Andarzaghar without alerting Bahman. Along the way, Khalid reinforced his army from the Arab tribes, which were now more eager to join his ranks, since the tax imposed by him was lower than the one they had to pay before, and that brought his numbers to around 15 to 20,000. The goal was to destroy the army under Andarzaghar before Bahman could reinforce it. Although Bahman's army noticed the movement of the Arabs, they were much slower, so Khalid was able to reach Andarzaghar well before Bahman, sometime in the second half of May. According to the sources, Andarzaghar had enough room to maneuver and wait for Bahman along the river, but he was confident in his troops and kept his position. For almost a day, the two armies seemingly remained in their respective camps, within reach of each other, without attempting to start a battle. The Arabs were probably resting after their forced march, and the Sassanids were hoping that this wait meant they might be reinforced. However, this wait couldn't last, since Khalid knew that he had to score a decisive victory before the second Sassanid army arrived. So on the next day, both forces formed up in standard formation with a centre and two wings. The battlefield near Welajah was an even plain stretching between two low, flat ridges, which were about 1 kilometre away from each other. To the northeast was a barren desert, with the river Kasif running close to the eastern ridge. Both armies had the ridges behind them, meaning that an attack from the rear was not possible to begin with. The Sassanid leader was surprised to see the whole Muslim army was smaller than previously reported, and that it only consisted of footmen, which contradicted what he had heard about the crucial role Khalid's cavalry played in the previous battles. Despite that, he was convinced that his position was impenetrable and decided to wait, as both armies knew that Bahman couldn't be too far away. Indeed, the Muslim commander ordered his entire army forward. Led by Khalid, who fought in the front rank, the army of the Caliphate charged into the enemy. For an hour or so, the two lines fought to a standstill, losing few warriors. But the Sassanids had the numbers, so their tired front line was replaced by the rear rank, which gave them the edge. Despite Khalid's personal martial skill, his troops were getting tired, so Andarzaghar's counterattack started to push the Muslim troops back. Slowly but surely, the Sassanids advanced, while the Arabs were getting dangerously close to the ridge, which would have made any retreat impossible. At this point, Khalid gave a signal that changed the course of the battle. The cavalry that he sent into the desert during the previous night appeared on the eastern ridge behind the Sassanid army. This was Khalid's trademark move, as his mobile cavalry was able to hide in the deserts with ease. The advance of the Sassanid army away from its fortified position meant that its rear was undefended. The light Arab horsemen charged into the Sassanid lines, while Khalid's infantry lengthened their front to envelop the wings of Andarzaghar's army. Minutes later, the Battle of Welajah was over. The Sassanid commander was dead, and his army was completely destroyed, with only 5,000 survivors managing to retreat from the field. Khalid's casualties were around 3,000.